Yeah.
Let's pivot a bit to the confirmation hearings this week happening on Wednesday. Lori Chavez-DeRemer will go before the Help Committee, the pension, I can't remember the whole name. You're awesome. Health, Employment, Labor, and Pensions Committee.
There you go. You got it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting. First of all, what has your organization been doing to get the attention of the Help Committee on this issue?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, we sent a letter to the president when this nomination came down, articulating kind of our position based on her positions as a member of Congress. And to your point, Jennifer, you iterated that she was basically a one-term congresswoman from Oregon. She lost her last election, and it was interesting because she's one of 3 Republicans to co-sponsor the PRO Act, which you and I have talked about, which is a bill designed to basically, first and foremost, repeal all the right to work laws across the country. And I don't know if you need to see this name up here, but it says right to work. We're pretty interested in that. And so that was of great interest to us. There's other elements of that bill that are really kind of, and I give you an idea of what she supports. And you mentioned independent contractors. There's a redefinition of independent contractors, the gig economy, if you will, when it comes to the fact that you can't unionize these people unless they're classified as employees. And of course, the Department of Labor under Julie Su has decided that there's a new definition of independent contractors. And Lori Chavez-DeRemer supports this redefinition because that was part of the PRO Act. There are other elements of the bill that are very, very problematic. So we let the president know we were concerned about that. We've talked to Senate offices about that concern. We've had meetings on Capitol Hill. We're actually running a social media, digital advertising, and radio campaign right now, letting Americans know about what her position is on right to work and independent contractors and other elements of things that she supported while a member of Congress. And hopefully we're encouraging them to contact their senators and, basically, first of all, grill her very, 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 very specifically about her view on forced unionism. And then secondly, consider whether or not she is a viable candidate to be the Secretary of Labor. So that program is underway right now. We've helped Senate offices basically understand what her positions were when she was a member of Congress and what that means as someone who would be in control of the Department of Labor. So that's what we've done so far. We're continuing to mobilize our members and supporters, and then just ordinary Americans that are interested in this stuff to basically get involved, understand her position, and understand what's going to happen on Wednesday.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. I don't quite understand how the veil has been drawn over the American people. And I think part of it is because anytime you think Department of Labor, you think unions, and they've deliberately done that shadow boxing. Mm-hmm. But this is, as you said, 70 billion overall, 11 billion just for discretionary money.
And for those are just rounding errors now. Come on. I mean, geez.
But a lot of taxpayer dollars go into this department, a department that basically, as far as I can tell from my years of being a business and years of interacting with small businesses, attacks them, wants to erode and destroy and overregulate them. And that's from fisheries all the way down to mom and pop food truck. So I don't quite understand why people, and I think that's going to change, thankfully, with this Doge thing, why people don't take a greater interest in something that is basically they've made the mechanics over the engines of the economy, and they haven't done a very good job. They're a really poor mechanic as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that U.S. senators had that same attitude about asking questions about, the regulatory schemes that are set up by the Department of Labor, the apprenticeship programs that have been, basically designed to help union apprenticeship programs. I mean, during the first Trump administration, we got some clarity and got some expansion of the idea of independent apprenticeship programs, meaning that small businesses and mom and pops and private industries could set up apprenticeship programs to train young people to come in. primarily under Obama and under Biden, those apprenticeship programs funneled money back into the union apprenticeship programs and getting, kind of setting up that taxpayer funded mechanism for unions to attract these workers and give, independent minded employers and small businesses the short shrift when it came to training people to do work in their business. So there's lots of issues around. And, this committee, which is interesting, and looking at the rundown and the roster of the committee, despite the partisan makeup of the Senate, it's still a 1-vote difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. And Jennifer, this shouldn't be a partisan issue, but unfortunately things boil down to partisanship, especially on the Republican or the Democrat side. You can always predict what the Democrats are going to do. Very rarely you get anyone to step outside the guardrails that is set up by the Bernie Sanders of the world, or the Nancy Pelosi's of the world. The Republican side, on the other hand, you got all kinds of standard deviations out there at the end of the bell curves. And that's not a bad thing. But what we're seeing on this committee, which is really interesting, is that Senator Cassidy has not indicated, what his position might be. He says he wants to grill her on several issues. I mean, he's a doctor. So some of the health stuff that come out of the Department of Labor is going to be a focus of his. But he comes from Louisiana, which is a right to work state. So we hope that he will basically grill her and say, what is your position on forced unionism? Do you believe that workers should be forced to pay union dues or fees to get or keep a job? And how would that manifest, your philosophy going into the Department of Labor on issues that touch on this idea of union power? Rand Paul's already indicated that he's going to oppose her because of her position in favor of repealing all the right to work laws. Kentucky's a right to work state. Rand Paul has been a great champion of individual freedom and liberty by supporting right to work, whether it be at the state level in his state of Kentucky or at the national level, trying to go back into the National Labor Relations Act and clean up the force and compulsion that comes from the language from the 1930s. However, Josh Hawley from Missouri has indicated that he's perfectly fine with her, that he said he would never impose right to work on anyone, which gives me the complete idea that he has no understanding of labor policy at all. If he says that he can't impose right to work on anyone, it's like, whoa.
Or he's being deliberately obtuse, which
I go
with the latter. Yeah.
Mark Wayne Mullins from Oklahoma has told Republicans that she'll be fine, just relax, get over it. Susan Collins from Maine has been traditionally a problem. Lisa Murkowski, perhaps. Roger Marshall from Kansas, which is a right to work state. We have a little concerns about that as well. I don't hold out great hope that she's going to not make it out of the committee. I think she will. I think it's probably she gets all the Democrat votes, Jennifer. I mean, Bernie Sanders said she'd be a great nominee and a great DOL secretary. He's going to let his, quote, her answers to questions decide what his vote's going to be. But Patty Murray and Elizabeth Warren and Randy Weingarten, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, said she's going to be great. Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley from her state of Oregon have said, this is the best we could ever hope for from a Republican administration. So those comments lead me to believe that she'll probably get a fairly good chunk of Democrat votes. And the idea of finding, 10 or 15 Republicans or more, if we have to, if they get 47 Democrats to vote for her, it's very hard to think that she won't be confirmed. So there's a lot of game left in this, but basically on the way it's fallen out, I think there's a lot of Republicans that don't want to challenge the president's nominees. And I get that to some degree. But then again, the process of getting to this nomination was kind of circumspect in the sense that when the regular transition team was looking at the DOL nominee, there were a bunch of names that were floated and being vetted. And all of a sudden, Sean O'Brien, as he mentioned in one of the podcasts I heard, he said he called up the president on his cell phone. The president answered and said, and O'Brien said, I want Lori Chavez-DeRemer to be the Secretary of Labor. He said, okay. And that's where we are. That's where we stand today.
Yeah. Why does this person have that much power? Again, over they represent 6% of the workforce. Why do?
Yeah, and not only that, Jennifer, he gets credit for quote not endorsing Donald Trump.
Yes,
I mean, somehow that earns him favor with the president. I guess the fact they didn't endorse Kamala Harris is kind of the kicker in that story. But here's what Sean O'Brien said about that. He has been out front saying they polled in their members, and 62% of Teamsters were going to vote for Donald Trump. And so the question for Sean O'Brien was, why didn't you endorse Donald Trump? Because your members, a great majority of your members said that's who we're voting for. But he said, well, we have Democrats in our membership as well. Well, somehow that earned him, this idea that he could call up the president and say, yeah, I want this person to be the Secretary of Labor.
Yeah, because while he did not endorse him, he also did not endorse the competition, and that's supposed to hold weight. It kind of, frankly, makes you look like you're hedging your bets, but that's a story for another day. So here is a different fly in the ointment, or a different thing to float. The Democrats and the labor unions are hotly upset over Doge and all, and the cutting off of their gravy trains, frankly, and their money laundering. And several people, including Patty Murray, I troll her quite often. It's a personal thing. She has claimed that, well, we're just going to block all of these Trump nominees until you get rid of Elon Musk, until he's fired. So do you think that'll happen this Wednesday with Lori Chavez-DeRemer, that they're going to hold to their word and block her?
Yeah, I don't know, Jennifer. I mean, what goes on inside those minds is, someone else who has a little more skill in psychoanalysis should do that. I don't offer that. I think, our job as citizens and our job at the Right to Work Committee is to help people understand the implications of this going forward. I mean, obviously, the gridlock in the United States Senate, the United States Congress is something that, I'm not I am a fan of gridlock in the sense of the less that government does, the better off I think we are, at least the federal government. This idea of federalism is something I believe in. And certainly when it comes to labor policy, if you look at the history of labor policy, you understand that the federal government has got way too much power and way too much regulatory power, all of this. And the states are the ones where this should go. They should be the laboratories of policy when it comes to, rules and regulations, so that capital and those people that are willing to invest and take a risk with their money can decide what environment they want to go to based on the policies of these states. And that goes to all kinds of different issues, and not to get too deep into that. But I think, you have to take them at face value. If they're going to try to block this is what they did in the first term of Trump. I think he's better prepared. Obviously, his staff is better prepared to deal with this. We've seen that in the first, 3 weeks of administration. The speed and, to your point, the fire hose nature of everything that's been happening has been incredible. So they can try, but I think the polls show that the president there's a favorable opinion of what he's doing when it comes to basically going in and analyzing what these agencies are doing, what their role is, how broadly they've expanded their role to the demise of, to your point, small businesses when it comes to regulation. I mean, we need to know that. And I think the American people are the ones that finally can say to the senators, look, proceed. And, the one thing we know about politicians, Jennifer, is the first thing they think about after getting elected is how to get reelected. And if the American people make their voices heard, whether it be in Washington State or whether it be in Massachusetts, wherever it is, these politicians will ultimately follow that because they're interested in being reelected. So I think they can try that. They can, spout off about blocking it all. But I think ultimately the president his will be done, if you will. And I think that will happen. And the American people at this point still support what he's up to and what he's doing.